Did you know actually unexpected situations in the exam room happen all the time, and they occur much more frequently than you might think? It's not just things like the exam room smelling bad or your pen running out of ink. Those happen every day. So they're not really unexpected situations. Those are what you'd call normal occurrences. Sometimes these situations include, but are not limited to, things like construction noise, computer crashes, pens leaking on your desk, someone at the next seat kicking your chair, or being disturbed when someone else is brought into the exam room. All of these are problems, and system errors are also an issue. Last week, I handled a case where a student taking an exam had his computer crash with just over 10 minutes left. After the crash, exam staff got him back into the system, but only 2 minutes remained. Naturally, his score for that subject was much lower as a result. What I want to share with you is that I've dealt with this kind of situation many times before, and I'd like to share with you a set of SOPs. These SOPs can help you protect your rights to the greatest extent possible. First of all, at the moment the incident happens, you must immediately raise your hand and ask the proctor for help. You can't handle it yourself, like restarting the computer. Raise your hand right away and request assistance. Then, if possible, you should immediately remember the exact time when it happened. Of course, there might not be a clock hanging in the exam room, but you must quickly remember details like which location this happened at, which subject you were taking, during which question the issue occurred, and what the specific details of the situation were. For example, the details of the situation might be that from the seat to my left, a pen was thrown over, or that there was ongoing construction noise outside the window, and the noise was so loud that it made it impossible to take the exam. You need to note down the detailed information about the situation. Just like you would remember a license plate number after an accident, you need to remember the time and the license plate, that kind of concept. Second, when the exam is over, please take the initiative to go to the test center's front desk staff and recount the detailed situation to them. Also, ask them to use their test center system to open a case for you and give you the case report number. Why? Because in the subsequent appeal process, if you don't have this case opened, it's as if your case never existed. If you don't have this report number, it will be very difficult to communicate with customer service. They might say that this incident never happened. It's a bit like appealing to the referee for help, which isn't ideal. But if you have this report number, your chances of success afterward will be much higher. If you really can't get a report number, at the very least, you should record the time when the incident happened and keep a record of your communication with the test center staff. Next, in the second stage, if you didn't get the report number when the incident happened, that's okay. You can call back later. For example, that student didn't do this on the day of the incident. So I told him to call back and ask for the report number, and he was able to get it. In short, this is their responsibility. They shouldn't cover up the case. Even if they refuse to give it to you and are just being difficult, at least you took the proper action. Later, when you file an official complaint with GMAT, you can mention in your email that you did this. Next, you need to write a letter. So for this letter, first of all, you need to include your name, your candidate ID, which you can usually find in your system, your appointment ID, which is the number for your exam reservation, and can also be found on the official website, as well as the date, time, and location of your exam and which test center you went to. Next, please describe in detail what happened. Specify the exact time it occurred, or during which subject and at which question it happened. Then provide a detailed account of the situation. For example, if you experience a disconnection, maybe you originally had more than 10 minutes left, but ended up with only 1 or 2 minutes, and describe how the test center staff handled the situation. Don't worry, the official records will definitely have all of this documented. For example, if there was a disconnection, the system will definitely have a record of it in the backend. If there was a sudden physical disturbance in the exam room, their cameras would definitely have captured it. Also, when the exam staff came in to handle the situation, that will be visible as well. These are all pieces of evidence. In addition to this, you can also provide evidence by showing that your score in a particular subject is significantly different from your scores in other subjects. For example, if the section you were affected in was DI and your previous math score was in the 90th percentile, your verbal was in the 70th percentile, but your DI was only in the 8th percentile, you can use this to demonstrate that you were indeed affected by an unusual disturbance. This helps to further prove that you were impacted. These are the kinds of information you need to include when writing your letter, such as your personal information, the people, time, place, and events involved, as well as objective evidence. Of course, when writing this letter, students can use GPT to help brainstorm and assist in composing it into an English letter. This letter needs to be sent to 2 places. The first place is the official GMAT, which is the exam organizer and also the final decision maker. The second place is Pearson VUE, which is the Pearson Test Center. That center is the organizer of the test. If you've been there, you'll know that the center doesn't just administer the GMAT, but also hosts other exams. So it's recommended to send a letter to both of these places. Next, regarding what to send As I mentioned, you need to include the exam date and location, your personal information, a clear description of the issue, what actions you took at the time, and if you received a case number, it's even better to include that as well. Also, as you can see here, you should describe the specific impact caused, provide evidence of any score discrepancies, request a review of the evidence, and propose possible solutions. Let me talk a bit about the solutions you can seek. The outcome you can fight for is not to have your score changed, not something like adding 20 or 30 points. That's impossible because it would seriously affect the fairness of the exam. So don't expect or even think about getting a result where your score is adjusted. The official authorities will not change any candidate's score. What most candidates can get is a free retake of the exam. In other words, they will give you a voucher which you can use to book your next exam for free. This is the result that most candidates will get, and it's already the best, a very good outcome. However, I would suggest that if possible, you should try to go a step further and request not only a free retake, but also to have this exam record cancelled. Why? Because if you only get a free retake, you're just getting a financial benefit, but the score and record of this exam will still count toward the 5 exam per year limit. In other words, you'll have one less attempt left for the rest of the year. Of course, for those who have already taken the exam many times, this could affect their flexibility for future exams. You can further try to negotiate to see if you can not only get a free retake, but also have this exam record completely cancelled. But let me say first, this is not guaranteed for most test takers. If you can manage to get this, that's great. Now, coming back to what we were discussing regarding your follow-up actions, it's possible that the first reply you receive will be a generic message. For example, they might say that after checking, they found no issues, or that no other test takers reported this problem on that day. This is just the standard procedure. Just follow up and push them as usual, okay? Keep telling them, hey, that's not right, that's impossible. I have clear evidence, or I strongly request that you check the backend records. Then firmly insist that they review the surveillance footage from the backend. Be persistent, send them an email every 3 days or every 5 days. Of course, don't start cursing at them. You need to maintain a firm and reasonable attitude. This is also part of the training you'll get in business school in the future, right? You need to know how to negotiate and deal with clients. Based on past experience like my own, some students have followed up for about 2 or 3 rounds. In the end, regardless of whether the final decision is good or bad, the point is that you've already done everything you should have done. So that's what this passage is about. Actually, this part wasn't created by AI. Let me explain. First, this passage is actually me recording the experience of a student who really encountered a situation where the price was raised. I documented his experience. And then the next time another student faced a similar situation, I immediately called him because it was quite urgent. So at that time, I found the registration form from the agency, looked up the phone number, and quickly sent it to him. Then I asked him, when exactly did this happen to you? Did you get a case number for this incident? If you haven't, go get one as soon as possible. Then let me tell you, after you get it, I'll tell you what you need to write. I also reached out to a student who successfully appealed before to get the template letter they used for their appeal. And I sent that template information to him. Then I asked the previous student, I asked them how they managed to appeal successfully, whether they got the runaround and what exactly they wrote at the time. I asked for all this information. On the phone, I explained to the student what steps they should take next. With the student's consent, I recorded the phone conversation, then transcribed the recording into a written document and organized it into the bullet point summary you see now. So let me make it clear. This summary is definitely not something I made up out of thin air, nor is it something AI invented. This summary combines the successful appeal experiences of previous students, as well as the approach I'm currently using to help students handle these situations. That's how the summary was created. Today, I hope to share it with you through this live class video, because unexpected incidents during exams can happen to anyone, and they actually occur much more frequently than you might think. In short, sharing these rights protections stops you really think you should make a note of them. Of course, if you actually encounter such a situation, just remember one thing. When it happens, make sure to clearly record the people, events, time, and place, and also ask the exam staff for the case number. As for the following steps, it's okay if you forget them. Just come back and tell me, and I'll walk you through the SOP again. Of course, the final decision isn't up to me, it's definitely made by them, but at the very least, we can do our best so that you won't feel so anxious.